all set.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Committee of Adjustment meeting for Monday, June 22nd. Joanne, do we have to appoint a chair, as the chair is not with us this evening in person? He's on by phone.
Good evening. Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Martin?
I'd like to appoint our Mayor Frank Bravo as the chair.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by Martin, second by Sam, that I would chair the meeting for this evening. And all in favor of that motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. So I'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda? Joanne?
No, there's no additions to the agenda. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. And if we can have somebody approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Sam, second by Stephanie. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes of June 15th, 2020 meeting. Can I have somebody approve that, please? Moved by Martin, second by Sam. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any minutes, any discussion on the minutes of the June 15th meeting? Not seeing none, we'll move to declaration of pecuniary interest. I have one. It'll be on number 5, which is A14-20, which is the Laframboise. I'm representing the owners of that property in regards to getting the minor variance. So I'll ask Sam, do you want to take that part of it in regards to that portion of the meeting? And then I'll just declare, and I'll get off on the speaker. And if there's any questions that you need answered, I can try and answer them for you by representing the Laframboise.
No problem.
Are you wanting me to move forward, Mr. Chair, with the first application?
Yeah, and Sam can, if there's any questions from any of the council members or the public, then Sam can.
I'll just move on to sharing my screen then.
Sorry, I just realized it's the first one.
Yes. I just need,
It should be good to go now, Joanne.
thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our June 22nd Committee of Adjustment meeting. For those of you who are participating online or by telephone, you will be given an opportunity to speak to your respective application following my presentations. Prior to speaking, please state your name and address for the record. For those of you who are participating by Zoom, we do have a raise hand function, and the chair will call upon you when you choose to speak, or if you choose to speak. And for those of you who have registered to participate in the meeting by phone, you will be asked if you would like to comment on the application after the applicable presentation. So I'm just going to start off with wording that's required to be read under the Ontario Planning Act. This is a hearing under Section 44 of the Ontario Planning Act. Any person may attend this hearing and or make written or verbal representation either in support of or in opposition to the proposed minor variance. If a person or public body does not make oral or written submissions at this hearing before the minor variance is decided upon, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the minor variance of the Committee of Adjustment to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, also known as LPAT. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment or the Township of South Glengarry before the minor variance is decided upon, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the LPAT unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to get started on application A1420. This property is legally described as part of Lot 4, registered plan number 113 in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in South Glengarry, also known as 6554 Tree Haven Road. This is a key map of where the area is located. This road would be the main entrance coming into Tree Haven. So this is north. And then you'll see the subject property here is highlighted in blue. The township building staff have been working with the former property owner since 2012 to bring the property into compliance, as construction occurred without a permit on the dwelling, on the detached garage. A breezeway to connect the detached garage to the dwelling was constructed, and additions were also constructed on the shed located in the rear yard. The purpose of the minor variance is for the applicant proposes to bring existing residential construction and structures, into compliance with the township zoning bylaw that were built without approvals and permits. So there's several minor variances that are requested here. The first one is to reduce the front yard setback from 15 meters to 5.21 meters, and to reduce the interior side yard setback on the south side from 10 meters to 1.21 meters, and from 10 meters to 1.47 meters on the north side. Also to reduce the interior side yard setback for an accessory structure, being the shed, from 1.2 meters to 0.55 meters, and to reduce the watercourse setback from 30 meters to 15.6 meters to the shed, and from 30 meters to 11.2 meters to the gazebo. The property is designated residential district and has provincially significant wetland on the property. It's at the very, very edge near the water, so it doesn't impact where the development exists. And that's designated that way in the county official plan. The application conforms to the general intent of the official plan, as residential development is permitted. The property is zoned as state residential and conforms to the general intent of the township zoning bylaw. To date, I've received no formal, oral, or written comments from the public. Planning and building have no concerns with the proposed minor variances. In fact, we're anxious to bring the property into compliance. The RCA supports the application, but recommends that the frame shed undergo a permit with the RCA to ensure floodproofing and or bring the structure into compliance with the Ontario Regulation 17506 under the Conservation Authorities Act. So that's it for my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions from the members of the committee? Councilor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Ms. Haley, my question is with regards to the shore setback and how, in this case, there's one that's less than the 15 meters that is being proposed for us to approve. How and this was a new structure, so I'm just unclear on how come that one, even if it's less than 15 meters, it can be done, that we have the authority to approve it.
So that's an excellent question. So that shed has existed for quite a long time. Unfortunately, we don't have an exact date for when that shed was constructed. But what happened was an addition was built on either side of the shed. So the reason why I'm putting in my presentation that we have no concerns is because it's following the established building line of the existing shed, which is how we treat many of the houses along our waterfront currently. So the new portions on both sides of the shed are not going any closer to the water, they're staying in line. And that's the only reason why. If we knew the exact year the original shed was built, we'd be able to compare it to previous legislation and know exactly what the rules were. But unfortunately, we just don't have that information on file. So we have to treat it as an existing use, and therefore would recognize the established building line.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee members?
I think there may be a question from Deputy Mayor Warden. He turned his mute off before. I'll just check with him.
Yeah, am I live?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, I know. I just wanted to say I'm glad that this is finally being able to be put to rest. I know this file is for some time, and thank you, Joanne, for your work on this file with with owners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions from the general public if there isn't any more from the committee members? If you'd like to just push the raise your hand setting or and we'll gladly unmute you.
Not seeing any.
I'm seeing none. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Martin, second by Stephanie, that we move to approve. All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
If that's sufficient enough for Ms. Haley. The chairing skills aren't quite there yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move on to the next application then.
Yeah, so it'll be A15-20, Arsenault and Daniellis.
Yes.
Daniellis, sorry.
And
Right.
can you still see my screen, everyone?
No,
Okay. Just give me a second. Oops, that would be the wrong. Okay, and is that there?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So our next application is located on part of Lot 24, Concession 6, Geographic Township of Lancaster, now in South Glengarry, also known as 4792 Second Line Road, is located almost inside and a little bit outside of the hamlet of North Lancaster. So the map that's on the screen here, the subject property is highlighted in blue. For those of you who can see my screen, there's an orange dashed line, and that orange dashed line almost divides the property in half, and that identifies the village boundary for North Lancaster. So the lands that are located on the south side are located within the rural settlement boundaries of North Lancaster, and the lands located on the outside are located in the agricultural area. So here I have a drawing that shows the zoning, and you can see the yellow here shows this inside the hamlet or the rural settlement area of North Lancaster, and then this is the agricultural zone. So in 2014, the current property owner applied for a severance to sever 75.6 acres of farmland that was sold, while retaining 4 acres of developed land containing a dwelling and a barn. Their application number was B11414 in 2014, was approved. It was subject to several conditions. And one condition was to decommission the existing barn to prevent the habitation of animals or to rezone the retained lands to reduce the minimum lot area. The applicant agreed to decommission the barn through the building permit process as opposed to the rezoning. That is often the case because many people will think, oh, they might not have animals anymore. It's also a less expensive process, and it takes less time to do that process. And so this was a public process. Once all the conditions were fulfilled, the final severance was approved and granted. The township recently received a complaint from a member of the public that the subject property had horses. The bylaw department investigated the complaint and provided options to the property owner to remove the horses or to apply for a minor variance to seek permission to have an agricultural use on an undersized lot. And that would be for the area of the property that's designated and zoned to agriculture, as I explained earlier. So the purpose of the minor variance request is to seek permission to have an agricultural use on an existing lot that is 1.63 hectares in size, where the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 20 hectares. So I just want to be clear on this. We're not asking the committee to reduce the minimum lot area. We're seeking permission to add an agricultural use. The property is designated agricultural resource on the northern portion, as I explained, and rural settlement area on the southern portion. If the minor variance is approved, only the area located in the agricultural resource portion will conform to the general intent of the official plan. And the property is zoned agricultural on the northern portion and residential 1 on the southern portion. And if the minor variance is approved, only the area located in the agricultural resource portion will conform to the general intent of the zoning bylaw. I have received 4 written comments via email to date supporting the proposed variance. So neighbors or property owners emailing in saying they have no concerns with the horses. I have received a phone call from a member of the public informing me that there are now 3 horses on the subject property and that they have seen horses be put in the barn. Planning does not support this application as the severance was approved based on a public process that the retained land would not be used for an agricultural use. The property owner agreed to this at the time, and the township's building official attended the site and deemed the barn to be decommissioned. If the committee chooses to approve this application, then I strongly suggest that it is subject to conditions. To cap the number of horses permitted on the subject property is the applicant. They've informed me that they rescue horses. So the concern there would be that if they have horses that are only permitted on the northern portion of the property, which is probably in the 2-acre range, that's not a huge area for a number of animals. And the other condition that I would recommend if you choose to approve it is to prevent the barn from being used, as the barn is located in the rural settlement area designation and the residential zone. And as I mentioned, it had already gone through the process where the building official attended the site and deemed it no longer to be a barn. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee or the members of the public if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Can you go back to the full screen? Thank you. So I'll ask if there's any questions or comments from the members of the committee. Sam, and then Stephanie.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess my question was in regards to, I was under the impression that these horses were already stored and or were placed or boarded with another property owner somewhere where they were allowed, and now maybe the owner of that property can't keep them anymore. Is that the case? Maybe Ms. Arsenault could answer this after, but I'm in favor if it's for 1 or 2 horses, but I don't want a rescue or a sanctuary on the edge of the village.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Stephanie?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Haley, I just want to understand the size again. So it's the total lot, so both pieces, both ag and residential, the total lot is 1.63 hectares, or is that just half of it?
No, that is the entire property, through you, Mr. Chair.
Is 1.63. Okay, so and it's approximately half, both to the sorry, half in the ag and half in the residential. I mean, I think also, like, we're getting into quite a small size, even if it would be agriculturally zoned. So I think what Councillor McDonnell mentioned in terms of, limiting, I mean, I think if we said it's like, yes, no problem for ag use, that could be really opening up a problem on the side, right on the edge of the village. Whereas I think with limitations makes some sense. But I'm interested to hear what the applicant has to give more context.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have a question from Deputy Mayor Warden. Go ahead, Lyle.
Yeah, thank you very much. So more a comment. I'm in favor of this application. I find that our bylaw at 20 hectares for agricultural use is a bit excessive. I do feel like someone who has maybe less acreage than that should be able to have, a hobby farm. In regards to this specific application, I agree. I believe with the amount of land that is there, I think that, setting a limit, 2 or 3 animals, I think would be prudent. And it's my understanding that the homeowner is aware that the barn is not permitted because it does fall within the village settlement. This to me is an example of somebody in Toronto setting the village limits, or somebody just having a little bit of oversight. Because in my opinion, I mean, at one time this was part of a 100+ acre farm, and that village settlement line really should have been to the south side of that barn. But anyways, we can't go backwards. I support the application with setting a limit, just so that even though compassion, care, and doing something good, I think we need to be mindful of that. So I'm in favor approving it with setting a limit of 2 or 3 horses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I'm just wondering what our options are as far as setting a limit. Can we, if we approve this, can we approve it with conditions that of 2 horses? And if we approve it with conditions of 2 horses, does that mean that later they can also get a donkey and a cow and, 3 sheep and 2 goats? Like, is there something that we can put in there that is definite of what, what we are wanting to see there? I don't like to see one animal by itself ever. So I wouldn't want to approve 1, but I'd be willing to go to 2 on this property, but it's not a huge amount of land. It's, 2 acres or maybe a shade under in that one part. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Mrs. Haley, can you answer part of that question, I guess?
Sure. So the committee always has the ability to issue decisions or approvals with conditions. It's not often done, especially the type of applications we see in South Glengarry. It's not often done, and sometimes it's enforceable because there's no agreement that you're entering into. There's no additional approval from council. There's no final approval like a severance. However, you definitely have the right to do that. And so how you would do it is someone would put a motion forward with the recommendation, let's say I'll use your example, Mr. Lang, to cap it at 2 horses. I believe someone else, I think it was Mr. Warden who indicated that they can't use the barn. You can put that right in the decision. Let's say our current applicant and property owners are extremely cooperative, but down the road there's a new property owner. Well, what we do is then we go out and we pull that approved decision, and you can use that in the if there's an issue again in the future. So that's how it can be handled. It's just based on what your motion is and if it's approved or not.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Mr. Chair, Joanne, would you mind putting the picture, I guess, back up just to see the urban settlement line?
Sure.
I just
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, but
Yeah.
Sam, you're on mute if you have a question.
sorry, I'm just trying to get a better idea of how many acres there actually are there.
Okay, so according to our mapping system, it comes out to 4.04 acres. And you can see it's not quite a perfect division. So I would say the northern portion, that's the ag portion, would be slightly more than 2 acres, and this would be slightly less than 2 acres.
But don't forget the house comes out of the northern portion and the lawns.
That was my comment, was I was hoping
And
maybe the applicant could give us an idea of where actually they plan to have a fence, just because when I kind of ran it on Google Earth, if I come to the edge of the house and then along kind of out around the pool, straight to the back and then out to the 4 corners, and I think I'm even going a little big, it's only like 1.1 acre.
There's a fence existing now. I did a drive-by and there's a fence existing now. The north part is fenced, and then about halfway in it angles on about almost a 45-degree angle over towards where the dotted line would be on the west side, but I didn't walk up in to see exactly, but that's kind of what it looked like from the road.
Okay, there is 2 questions coming from the public, so I presume maybe we might get some comments from the property owner. So I'm not sure who they are, Kaylin, but whatever one you put on, if the person can identify themselves and give their civic number, please, I would appreciate it.
Would you prefer I started with the property owner, Mr. Chair, or would you like me to put
Yeah,
on?
no, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, please, Ms. Arsenault. Oh, one moment.
Are we muted?
No, you're able to speak now.
Okay, just have a few comments to make. Yes, have I rescued animals? Yes, I've rescued animals. In all the time that I've lived here, I've never had more than 3 horses on the property. One of the horses that I did bring here in 2018, he was a rescue. He's not going anywhere. I keep him for a companion of a 30-year-old pony. Yes, people have seen dogs come and go. I'll rescue a dog at the time, find a home for it and place it. As far as filling the place with animals, no, I have no intentions of doing that. The pastures where the 2 horses are standing right now, that is the original pasture that we used when we did have the 90-some odd acres of land. So nothing's really changed. The only thing that's changed, cage wire has been taken down and electric has been put up. So did I use the barn? As I explained to Ms. Haley, yes, I did use the barn when it was -20 and the wind was blowing. Yeah, I put the horses in. Other from that, they're in the pasture. That's where they are. So we did have Mr. Warden come by and explain that we'd be willing to build a shed in that pasture, a 10 by 10 shed, and they would be fine there. I mean, did I use the barn? Yes, it was convenient. I used the barn when it was really cold out. Aside from that, it hasn't really changed. I have someone who removes the manure for me a couple of times a year, and I don't intend in turning it into a rescue and bringing all kinds of things home. That's not my intention. My intention is just to have a minor variance so I can keep the 30-year-old horse and his companion. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. I think there was another question from somebody from the public.
Yes, just one moment. Go ahead, Ms. Stelmack.
So hi, I live in North Lancaster, and
Can you provide your name and civic number?
my name is Diana Stelmack, and I live at 21231 Concession 6.
Thank you.
In North Lancaster. And I just wanted to say that the property is always kept very clean. The horses, it's a horse and a pony. They're not like two gigantic horses. Like the pony is very old. He's about 35 years old and he's not going to live very long. She's not intending in getting a lot of horses. Just having the one or two horses is enough to handle. It's something for pleasure. She's had horses almost all her life, and she takes care of her property very well and not abusing the property or abusing the animals. If they were to go, it would be pretty devastating for her and her family, and having to try and move because she doesn't want to place them somewhere else and have someone else take care of them. I'm just vouching for her, and I really think that it should be left as it is. And she understands very much about the barn, and she would use another shed that she would build in the agricultural part. I've offered her to keep at my place, but just at last resort, but it would be better if they would just stay there with her. And I don't see any issue with it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Diana, for your comments. I understand we have another question from the public, and I think there's two other questions from a member of the committee. So, Caitlin, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. McCrae.
Yeah. Hi. This is the Aidan McCrae from 21674 Concession 6, North Lancaster, and I'm also here with Rod and Moira McCrae, and I just wanted to say that Ms. Arsenault is a really professional and caring landowner, and her entire property adds so much character to this entire neighborhood. To anyone who passes through North Lancaster, and her animals are really well cared for, and the property itself. I think the animals really add to that character and to the well-being of the community as a whole, since animals are a really important part of who we are as Glengarrians.
Okay, thanks very much for your comments, Ms. McCrae. I believe we have a question from Councillor McDonnell and then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I know the property well enough. I live in the area. I've driven past it my entire life. I've never seen it as an issue property. I just reserve my issues, or my concerns. I don't have an issue really with it as it stands now. My bigger concern is going forward in the future. Maybe not this property owner, but a future property owner buys it under the impression that they'd be able to keep horses or keep as many horses as they please. It was just, I guess my only concern would be to maybe put a limit on animals. As far as I can see, it's only about 1.5 acres of the animals on, given by the pool that's there and everything else. I really don't have an issue with it as it stands, so long as maybe there's a limit on the number of animals.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question to Ms. Arsenault. I just wanted to be very clear that she's asking for 2 horses or for 3 horses, because I feel like maybe it was Ms. Haley that said 3, but I just want to be clear how many horses we're talking, or equines, including the pony.
Mrs. Arsenault, if you can answer that question, I guess.
We have a 35-year-old pony, and we have a quarter horse companion for him.
So just the 2?
That's right.
Thank you.
So to answer Councillor Jaworski's question, so you'd be satisfied if the committee passed it with a limit of 2 horses on your property?
That's fine. But like I spoke to Joanne about this, if I have a friend who comes by, because we have neighbors down the road, we all ride. We have a new couple who's just moved in onto the 6th. We ride also. And like I said to Joanne, if there's a 3rd horse on the property for the day, are they going to call the township and say there's a 3rd horse there? Like, am I going to have this? Is this going to keep coming up? And the way that Ms. Haley explained it to me is like, once they pass a minor variance, then you can have as many animals as you want, which I thought was a little strange because there's not enough room here to fill up with animals. Like, that's nowhere near our desire, you know. But I just want to clear that, you know, if somebody comes and I put a 3rd horse in my pasture, we unsaddle it and we leave a halter on it, and there's a 3rd horse in there, and the person who filed the complaint walks by and sees the 3rd horse, are we going to be doing this again?
Mrs. Haley?
I can explain that, Mr. Mayor. So to use Ms. Arsenault's example, that if another horse arrived on site and we received a complaint, then yes, our bylaw officer would attend the property, would investigate if there's additional animals on site, would work with you and remind you what the approval is, whatever it may be, if there is one. And let's say it is approved at 2 horses and you have 3 there, then you'll be asked to remove that 3rd horse. I also want to speak about why the bylaw doesn't cap the number of animals. And so the reason the bylaw is written that way is because you're either permitted in agricultural use or you're not. And that's the purpose of sizes, to make sure that properties are adequately sized to accommodate an agricultural use. A lot of bylaws are written to not have numbers for almost the exact reason that Ms. Arsenault is saying, because if you have 2 horses, you breed that horse, you now have a 3rd horse, you're attached to that horse, you don't want to get rid of it, and now you're maybe exceeding the bylaw. However, when you have circumstances like this, where we're trying to work with an existing property owner, because complaints have been filed, the committee has every right to put caps in for whatever reason you wish. It could be based on lot size, it could be based on location. I've even seen decisions written that, you know, once the horses pass on, the horse can't be replaced, because the purpose of that property is for residential use. It's not for agricultural use. If it was to be for an agricultural use, then the severance shouldn't have been applied for, and those agreements shouldn't have been put in place. So if the committee today, you have a choice, in my opinion, to either refuse it or approve it. And if you choose to approve it, you can put those conditions in place if you want to. So I hope that answers the questions to clarify the reason for the no number and how we would handle additional complaints.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? If not seeing none, if somebody wants to put a motion forward with, we can put a motion forward and either declining it or approving it. And if we approve it with conditions in it, allowing up to 2 or 3 horses, whatever the committee desires. So if somebody wants to put that forward. Councillor McDonnell, I believe. Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would move to approve it to a maximum of 3 horses, and if I can get a seconder, I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. So there is a motion on the table that we approve it with the condition of 3 horses max. Councillor McDonnell.
I was going to move to approve, but at 2, but if the committee is good with 3, I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from Councillor Lang?
My thought was 2 as well. It's not a huge property when you take that house out. So I'd be okay at 2.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski?
I agree, it's not a huge property, but there are folks who have horses in fine conditions and less. So, I mean, if it's, I don't have an issue with 3.
Okay, Councillor Lang?
I have a question. If the owner is only asking for 2 at this point, why are we going to 3? She said she would be happy with 2. I think we would, let's not expand this any bigger than it needs to be.
Right, but my thought was if the scenario happened that she explained, and then you get the person who complained, and she has a horse overnight or something, then it basically our bylaw has to go out there and waste their time and our resources. I just thought if we did the extra one, and if that scenario ever occurred, and it seems like that would be the scenario, that's why I suggested the 3, just to save our resources. Because if the person who made the complaint in the past sees the 3rd horse on there, anyway, that was my thought behind it. But whatever the committee chooses, I'll support.
Councillor McDonnell?
You, Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve Councillor Lang's 2, only based on the fact that if a horse was there overnight, I can't see bylaw calling, going out and calling in a transporter to remove the horse. They're going to be given time. I'm fine at 2. It's 1.5 acres. It's really not that much. 3 horses would start to get a little crowded. And I mean, if we move for 3, then you're approving permanent 3. I can't see there being a major issue in that situation. Should there be an extra horse or 2? And in my past experience, normally it's not just 2 people riding. There'll often be 3 or 4. So you're going to be going over it anyways. You're not really going to be accommodating many different options. But I see Ms. Arsenault's got her hand up.
Okay, sorry, Councillor McDonnell, I could hardly hear you. So are you suggesting that you're approving with Deputy Mayor Warden, or just 2? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lang's 2.
Thank you. I believe we have another question from Mrs. Arsenault.
I just wanted to say that we won't be breeding them because they're both geldings. So I've never bred and I have no intentions of breeding. I always have a gelding, never a mare, always have a male dog, never a female. So I don't have litters and I don't breed.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Lang. You said you were in favor of 2.
Yes, my vote would be for 2. I think that's what they're asking for. And if we go with 3, and then someday they have 3, I mean, the neighbor could still come over, and then it'll be 4, and somebody could phone. I mean, we can't worry about the fact that a neighbor might phone and complain. My advice in that case would be to go over and see the neighbor and explain to them what you're doing. And sometimes people visit for the day, and horse might be in the pasture for the day. I would work with the neighbor myself, but no, I'll make a motion for 2 if I can get the support for it.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
second it. That's fine.
Okay, so we do have a mover for approving the minor variance with the condition of allowing 2 horses only. It was moved by Martin Lang, second by Deputy Mayor Lyle Warden. All in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you very much, Mrs. Arsenault, and everyone else in the public. Thank you. We'll move to number 7. A16-20 1655710 Ontario Limited. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Just making sure. Okay. So we'll move on to application A1620. This property is located at part of lots 15 to 18, concession to Indian lands in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in South Glengarry, also known as 6251 Boundary Road. This is an area of the property that we're talking about. To try and orient everyone, this building is called the Commercial Truck Repair. This location is the Seaway gas station, the small little gas station on Boundary Road. Across the road would be the McEwen gas station. So, and then I'm just going to show you this area of the map here. And the reason why I'm showing you this one is because the property was recently subject to a consent. And this is where you can see the smaller portion in the pink and then the blue being the retained. So the purpose of the minor variance is to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 40 meters to 18.435 meters on a parcel of property that recently received provisional consent approval. I'm just going to go back to this screen. So again, this is the entire property, and this is the severed portion. You can see how narrow it is located here. And that's because this is proposed to be reduced from the required 40 meters to a little over 18 meters of frontage. The property is designated employment district and conforms to the general intent of the official plan. And the property is zoned highway commercial and conforms to the general intent of the zoning bylaw. To date, I've received no formal or oral or written comments from the public. Planning and building have no concerns with the proposed variance. The city of Cornwall was circulated simply because Boundary Road is a road that's owned by the city. So any ownership within 60 meters of the subject property, they need to be notified. I've not received any comments to date. I did touch base with a few of the city employees this afternoon looking for their comments, but I would just like to say to the committee that the city had no concerns during the severance process. They had one condition requiring the applicant to acknowledge that no further entrances will be granted. So in my opinion, if the city was not supportive of their severance application, they would have objected then, which is why I feel comfortable in moving forward without the city's formal comments, because they didn't have any conditions expressing that concern of the reduced lot frontage at the time of the severance application. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Haley. Can you go back to the full screen, please?
Yes.
We do have a question from Councillor Lang. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I have no issues with this. 18 meters is about 60 feet, which is wider than some of the road allowances in our township. So I think they should be able to get in and out just fine with that. And it's a commercial property that's, going to be used as such.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McDonnell.
I agree with Councillor Lang. I don't see an issue with it. Like you said, I was going to say that's wider than some of the lots we have in the municipality and the villages.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the general public? Kaylin, does anyone have their hands up?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, sorry, before,
Go ahead.
I just, my only concern was that the city did not comment on this. I know on Boundary Road, they're very sticky with other, anytime there's a severance or any applications in this nature. But I did speak, after speaking with Ms. Haley, I feel confident, but it was a concern that I had that they did not provide any comments.
Okay, thank you. So are you in support of the application, Mr.?
Yes, I have no objections.
Okay, thank you. And Caitlin, is there any comments or questions from the general public?
I don't see any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
I'd move to approve the application as it stands.
Okay, so Councillor McDonnell will move the application the way it stands. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, second by Deputy Mayor Warden. There's no other questions or comments. All in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Motion's carried. So that will be it for this evening. So our next meeting, sorry, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for hosting the meeting. I had an unexpected detour today, so I was only able to call in. So thank you for hosting on my behalf.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. So the next meeting, I understand, is to be determined, but it sounds like it might be July 6th.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did receive an application on Friday. There's a few little things that need to be tweaked with the application. So if I receive that tomorrow, the applications need to be circulated by Wednesday morning. So we're on a tight time frame. But if that's okay, I would like to have a meeting on July 6th in advance of our council meeting if possible.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine. Thank you. Okay. If I can have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting, please. Moved by Sam, second by Stephanie. All in favor of the motion? Deputy Mayor Warden?
I'm in favor.
Motion's carried.
I'm in favor. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Motion's carried. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy this wonderful heat.
Yeah, thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay in the air conditioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Night, everybody.